All right, we're back at it on the SuccessFlow podcast and jumping into a topic today that I'm a little surprised we haven't brought up yet, and we likely have in other areas, but it's something that really encapsulates the theme of this podcast: defining success for yourself, making life transitions that align to your massive transformative purpose. And we're going to be jumping into the hero's journey today. And this is a concept that you will likely see is in all types of media, the stories and narratives that we grow up with, the movies, to our religious beliefs, if you have those. This is really the framework that's been broken down and dissected. And we're going to talk about who's been credited, maybe who should have been credited, and just kind of see how this matches up with how you're looking at your life today. What are you thinking today, Steven?
I think it's great. There's it's like a whole 12-step process to this thing of what the hero's journey is all about. And more often than not, it's like a rags to riches type story. And you see it all over in the movies. You see it in real world. You see it from celebrities to business people to whatever their definition of success is. A lot of times we think about the hero's journey as someone doing like massive things, like Michael Jordan or Jeff Bezos or, different things of like their huge success. But I think the purpose of talking about it is like, that's not on most people's definition of success as being at that level. Most people, I think are good with, their own growth path, and they're not trying to be the best basketball player in the world or the best of anything in the world. They're trying to define success for themselves. So you can leverage this 12-step kind of hero's journey of how you approach things, because maybe you didn't come from much and you still have the opportunity to get to where you want to go. And I think it's a great topic.
Yeah, and it's kind of in the title, right? Something that is very cliche, and it's cliches are cliches for a reason, as we talk about on this podcast a lot. But what we throw around as the joy is in the journey, not the destination. It really is. This is a way to break that down on it's the challenges we're going through that shape this person that we are becoming, that we're never really going to fully become. I mean, yes, we have an expiration date and we're shooting for that, but it's the process of going through the experience of what is life that shapes the hero. And that's what we're going to chat through today. I think the original contribution was Hero with 1,000 Faces. And if anybody watched Game of Thrones, which is total hero's journey themes throughout it as well, it was the Girl with 1,000 Faces. And that was a direct, I believe, model off of Joseph Campbell's core contribution that gives him credit for the hero's journey, even though the Bible, all of the sacred texts, the Odyssey, those all came well before Joseph Campbell. But Joseph Campbell is an author that really gets credited with this because he put his branding on it. And he came up with this concept called the monomyth, which is a universal story structure. And he identified it through all these cultures and religious texts and legends that have been passed down. And he's basically stating that the human experience follows an archetypal stages of transformation from the known world to the unknown, through trials and revelation, and back again to pass along that wisdom to others. And that is exactly what we're trying to do on the SuccessFlow podcast.
Yeah, it's a good backstory. Do you want to jump into the 12 steps?
Yeah. So Joseph Campbell basically stated that he broke it down to 12 steps, which was more than I had recalled doing the research for this podcast. But we're going to go through and kind of volley as we do, going through these 12 stages that are simplified to see kind of where you might be. And kind of back to the spiral conversation that we had earlier, there are multiple journeys going on within our lives, and the different pillars of life that we're trying to grow in different phases we might be in. We have to restart over and jump in. So keep that open mind as we're talking about these 12 stages and where you might be on the hero's journey. So to kick us off, we're going to kick off in the hero's ordinary world. This is the starting point before the transformation. Think of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars when he's just with his aunt and uncle out working on the droids in the on, I think it's Tatooine, that planet. I'm testing me on my Star Wars there. Or Harry Potter is with his aunt and uncle living under a cupboard before he gets the call to the wild. This is just every kind of plain and ordinary, probably some suffering involved, where we meet the hero in their journey.
Yeah. So that's like kind of the rags, like where they start. It's just, it doesn't have to be terrible, but it's ordinary, right? It's just kind of like you're living, it's just where you grew up or what you're doing. You're not coming from much. Or
Steven Harris drafting architectural designs in an office cubicle.
Yeah, it's like we loved our house growing up. We had no furniture in our living room, and it was the best. Like, we loved it as kids. My parents were just starting out as entrepreneurs and trying to figure things out. And it's funny thinking back, when they were in their 40s building stuff, and like us kids, we had a blast, like hanging out in an empty living room, building forts and all this stuff. I'm sure they were like, man, I'm ready to be able to afford some furniture here. But it was, for us, we didn't know any better. It was great. It's like a playground. But yeah, so ordinary world, right? Like, that's kind of where you start, or this hero's journey starts. And then the next is the call to adventure. It's where you have, something happens in your life that makes you realize, ooh, this could be cool. And I think this will impact other people, or this could be cool. And this is like what I want to be doing with my life. So some real world examples. You can go back to like Michael Jordan, like a call to adventure. Like, he got cut from his high school varsity team. Now, he was a freshman, I believe. He was young, but he got cut. And so he had something not so great happen, but then realized, ooh, this is something I really want. So I'm going to put in the work. Or, Jesse Itzler. We've talked about him a few times. His wife, Sarah Blakely, is the founder of Spanx.
Mm-hmm. Spanx.
Yeah. So she had like, her ordinary world. She had no business background, no nothing. She was like a fax machine salesperson way back when, but her call to adventure was realizing there's a market for Spanx by cutting off the feet in her pantyhose to make her look smoother under her clothes. So like something.
Which you just said she's a Xerox salesperson. I will push back on that, and just so the listeners know, that is, anytime I hear someone has been in that craft for more than a year or two, they are killers. It is the hardest sales role. Even more so than door-to-door, Cutco knives, whatever. Xerox salespeople they're different. They're built different. If they've had
that's probably true.
Any inkling of success. But sorry,
that's probably true. You have to have a lot of grit and tenacity and never give up attitude to make that happen. But
to differentiate for Xerox copiers, man, it is tough.
So you have this call to adventure, something happens, or this idea bursts in your head, and you see that there's a market for this. You're like, I feel compelled to make an impact. And that's kind of where the hero's journey starts. They haven't taken any action yet, but they've realized something that's possible. So
that call to adventure happens. We see the kind of sign from the universe that there's something better, that the growth is waiting for that person. But then there's typically a refusal of the call. We're stubborn humans. I also think this portion is like, the hero's journey is very applicable to addiction. The friends and family and close ones that we've had with addiction, this refusal of the call is like, no, I'm not going to make a change. The life's fine the way it is. There's self-doubt there.
I'm comfortable.
The worst word. The worst word. But we've all done it, and we're like, we refuse. This is the part of the movie that frustrates everyone, because you're like, come on, it's right there. And that refusal is that third phase in the hero's journey. Yeah, it's facing the self-doubt and rejection. And it could be real life stuff, like maybe you're hitting roadblocks, like you did take this to market, and partners aren't lining up or clients aren't lining up, and you're like, oh man, should I even be doing this? So the next step would be when you meet the mentor. It's almost like that inspiration, that motivator, that person that is you're excited about it in your own head, but then now you've got head trash that it's not going to work. So who's that third party outside influence that is lifting you up on your feet and kind of reminding you, or
letting you know that your idea is credible and you can do amazing things. And so you meet that mentor that kind of guides you and coaches you through those tough situations and makes you believe that what you've got is a gift.
Yeah, this is the wise sage. This is the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Gandalf, the Professor Dumbledore, the Bill Harris. They show up when you're least expecting them, and they're the ones that really bring a different perspective that makes you realize the journey is worth taking and what the art of the possible could look like. And then the next phase is crossing the first threshold. This is arguably the hardest challenge, that you're being told that this journey is not going to be easy, and you have to get past this first starting point that's painful. The most doubt that's ever been present is there because you haven't done this before. And you are taking that leap, jumping off the cliff, burning the bridges for this first key test on the hero's journey.
Yeah. And that's what it is after you cross that threshold, the next phase is tests and allies. And, what are the things that you're, who are your enemies in these situations? It really now you're going to market and something's out there and something's realizing that you're doing something. So you're going to be tested, and can you power through and continue to believe in what you're doing? So, like going back to Sarah Blakely, she convinced Neiman Marcus to take her product and gets Oprah to endorse Spanx, right? I mean, that was a big test to see how could she get over the hump of just being a local type of marketer, just pushing things here. Look, like, how do I get into these big brands, these big box stores? How do I get someone who has a big influence to push the product and believe in it as well? But you are going to run into those obstacles, and so you these tests and allies are extremely important for growth. You can't grow if you're not taking on these challenges and setbacks along the way.
And in everyday life, I think of as you are joining a new company, you're finding the colleagues that you're going to be on this mission with, and you can learn from about the mission, filling each other's gaps, where are your weaknesses, and your allies that are going to be able to pick up that part, and you in return can guide them with your strengths. Just as you're going into college, think about the allies that you meet that, this is who I want to do college with. It's going to keep me on a strong path where I'm going to have fun. This is something we're doing to figure out on this journey, who do I want to experience this with? And maybe some of those allies turn into enemies and enemies into allies. We've all seen that happen too. This is a very fluid portion when we're figuring out the team that we're going to go through this with. And so then we start, as the plot thickens in these movies, we start realizing the real tough challenge, the crux of what the mission is and how hard it's going to be, and confronting that deepest fear because it seems so unachievable to right side this. That starts building up in the story of the hero's journey, which is also a very uncomfortable part of life as we're experiencing it.
Yeah, I give you an example. It's like Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks. As they were growing so rapidly, he was questioning whether the company was losing its soul or not, right? Like, he wanted to build a coffee brand around community, a place where people could go and congregate and enjoy, be with each other. But as it was growing nationwide and globally, he was going through like, am I losing, the not the reputation, but just like the overall purpose of why I started this thing, and then, the next phase of the hero's journey is the ordeal. You have like the 2008 housing crisis and the recession, and Starbucks was one of those companies that suffered, sales slumped, stores closed, the stock didn't do well. Not a lot of things in those, large enterprise world did well. And so you had this big ordeal. It's like, now it's not even just little operational setbacks or challenges or typical growth opportunities that you run into. You have a massive ordeal that you're like, oh my gosh, is this it? Am I done? And you can't be a hero if you call it quits. You got to keep going. And so for him, for Howard Schultz, obviously now we know Starbucks is what it is. He powered through that recession, and he returned as CEO in 2008 to fight to revive the company and revive its purpose.
Yeah, and we're getting kind of to the climax here, right? These next two phases, the ordeal and then the reward. Once success is achieved, and again, we're going to have multiple of these through our life, but you actually see the benefit of taking the risk, going through the work, and you gain insight that life shifts in the possibility of how it can be. Good triumphs over evil. Progress is made that you set a new standard and you don't go back to. That reward, or I think Joseph Campbell says, seizing the sword, which I think that goes to Excalibur, pulling the sword from the stone. But that moment where it's all worth it. This is why I went and started this journey to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like all of this stuff happens over a long period of time, or it could also happen, very quickly. Like a breakthrough can happen within a couple of months. Like you could go from, like, I think about someone who goes, like, think of like James Clear, Atomic Habits. Like he had this idea, put a lot of work in. No one saw that stuff, but he writes this book, and first book ever, and immediately gets like straight to the reward and the success of where he came from to where he's at now.
Which started a whole different hero's journey for him, because he then had to deal with overnight success, or that's how people
the imposter syndrome. Like, oh shoot, now I got to deliver, right? Like exactly. Now I got to
again and again.
Yeah. So then you have, the last kind of piece of this puzzle is the return to Elixir, and, which is basically making the impact on others and how you inspire others to follow their own journeys. And, think of like Michael Jordan, for example, like inspiring so many kids growing up, myself included, to want to be in the NBA and want to work hard and want to play well. That's kind of what that hero's journey is all about. The hero's journey ends with someone to be, that you want to follow. You really are vibing with the work that they put in and excited about their story. And so you want to create your own and be inspired to do it along the same way. And so that's kind of the last piece of this puzzle.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that, again, Joseph Campbell gets all this credit because he put a framework to this, right, and called it the hero's journey. But Carl Jung, which we've talked about with on the podcast before, love Carl Jung. If you haven't explored him and this type of topic interests you, he had a lot of archetypes on how the individual is developed. And we talk about the shadow and our dark side and how you have to integrate that in the hero's journey. Carl Jung is as credited, or should be as credited, to the hero's journey as Joseph Campbell. And the other thing that I really wanted to bring up, because I love his frame for it, Joe Rogan it's probably his most famous clip or little monologue in regard to self-development, which he has a bunch, but he talks about how to be the hero of your own story. And it's the same concept. It's like, I like a guy that has his life in shambles when you are in that ordinary life state, which you've created a mess that you have to put pen to paper in and claw yourself out and totally rebuild your life, along with the mindset of, imagine as you're going throughout your day, there's a camera crew filming you and you're in a movie and you're the main character of that movie. And this camera crew is going to see every decision you make and watch you make good decision by good decision to change things around, to build a life that you're proud of. And it keeps you accountable when you think about it that way. Be the hero of your own story on this journey that we talk about, defining success for yourself. It's a great way to look at it, because we are, at the end of the day, you've been put onto this planet in this existence to solve your problems and to create your journey. It's a very individual thing. We have our tribes that are our teammates and the people that we're going to experience it with. We do have to select those, but at the end of the day, you're put into one meat suit down here, and it's up to you to be that hero of your own story.
Yeah, and it's not all heroes are wearing capes. Like, it's not all, like we kicked off the pod, it's not famous celebrity, founders, super wealthy. I mean, it's everyday people, guys like you and I, striving for success, striving for growth, striving for excellence. It never really ends. It's a cyclical journey of your hero's journey. It happens all the time. Once you reach some level, the next journey begins, right? And the next, and it's just continuing that pursuit and cleaning up your mess. And I like how you said, owning up to your own mistakes and where you came from and things like that. I actually just watched, dude, when's the last time you watched 8 Mile with Eminem?
Ooh,
when's the last time you watched that movie? Dude, we put it on last night. It's been so long.
I listen to Lose Yourself very frequently when
all
I
the time.
Need a pump up. But.
I mean, that story in and of itself, Eminem's story is a hero's journey, and like
100%,
right? And so and even the movie's loosely based on him, but it's like, the last rap battle that he had was not about the other guy so much. So it was all, he's like, hey, I know what you're going to say about me. Yeah, I do live in a trailer park. And yeah. Totally. Yeah. And then the guy couldn't, Papa Doc, he couldn't say anything. He was shocked.
That was the war of art. Total strategy, disarmed the opponent. It's just a beautiful, beautiful example.
It was great. And it was, so it was fun. Kim and I had a really good time watching that movie. It brought a lot of memories back to the good old days when Eminem was doing his thing. But, it just reminds me of like our own journeys and our own paths and our own, it all starts with an opportunity. It all starts with an idea to take action on something. It all starts with having a purpose, like a North Star, and like defining that and figuring out what that is. And then when you have this call to adventure of like, hey, I think I can do this. I think this is a cool idea. Go see the whole entire journey, the journey all the way through. Don't stop at the first sense of resistance. Like, growth meets resistance is what's going to equal the success. Like, you have to power through that. So like when you have that call to adventure, go for it, all in. And even if you've got your core, your core business or your core job or your, core life, but there's some really cool ideas, and it doesn't have to be about anything like making money or earning an income. It can be a hero's journey all about adventure or travel or whatever. Like, when you have this idea, like, go take the trip, go plan, like, don't sit back. And so I think it's just a really neat reminder. Life, it seems like we have a lot of time, but we really, really don't. And so it's like, just go do it while you're young too. Cause by the time you're, in your fourth quarter of your life, you hopefully you're healthy enough now and you're working on things and getting yourself to the point that by the time you are 70 and 80, you can still take those trips and do all the things that you want to do. But, there's no guarantee of that. So why wait? Like, do it now. Don't wait till quote unquote retirement. Build that work-life integration and build your own hero's journey along the way.
Oh, it's so good. And it makes me think of the other piece I love about this is the onus of control, right? We talk about extreme ownership on this podcast a lot. And I heard a clip the other day, it was a while ago, because it really hit me that, and this is kind of more of a masculine frame to it, but it's not just a masculine frame at all. The day a boy becomes a man, or we say a human becomes fully independent, is the day you realize that no one's coming to save you. I know I've said that at the jump multiple times. And that frame of, if we ever get to the point where we're like, someone's going to come along, whether it's a romantic relationship, and that'll be the thing that calls me into action and rights everything. I'm going to have a financial windfall that's going to solve my finance problems. No, the moment that you realize no one's coming to save you, and that you are taking extreme ownership for your wins, for your losses, is such a critical moment. And I don't think many of our listeners are in that camp, but you might be. If those thoughts are looming, it's a chance to take a reframe at your hero's journey, take that extreme ownership, and start making the day-to-day decisions to design the life that you want. That's really the overall overlapping message that we're hoping to share, because we've had to get those messages over the course of this journey.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer that you're not finding yourself, you're creating yourself, and no one's coming to save you. You're not going to be able to find yourself by not doing anything, being comfortable, doing the same routine, day in and day out, that's not serving you. And get out there and create yourself, create those opportunities, and you'll be able to create your own hero's journey. And I think that's the crux of it all. And that's kind of what you and I live by, and what so many of our listeners live by, is just getting out there and creating the life that they deserve and the life that they want, and going after it. And here's a thought-provoking question that I use at the jump that's in the OppoFlow playbook. And it's, if you had all the resources and tools in the world and no one would judge you, what would you do with your life? And if you were to remove all the judgment and remove all the perceived roadblocks and setbacks that you have, what would you do? And then do that. Like, go just start putting in the baby steps of trying to create that and do that, and just see what's possible. Find out what you're capable of.
Amen, brother. I think there's nothing super complex or nuanced on this episode, but I'm really glad we covered it. You're going to live this arc multiple times. You're in the middle of a hero's journey right now, whichever phase it might be that we covered. Take a look at where you've come from, where you're going, where that is on the arc, the relationships you have, who's on your team, whatever career you're in. What identity are you mapping to? That's what I've been talking a lot with my coaching clients, my friends. What identity are you mapping to? That has to be crystal clear. And they're all going to demand a version of this hero's journey for you to take specific action. The pain of transformation is often where people quit. When they realize they're just getting into act 2, you are just about ready to have the entire shift you want, people will get complacent and quit. And that the true elixir is not often success itself, this destination that's in the title of the podcast, or fame or wealth, but self-awareness and the resilience and peace to continue on this journey. Now I think that's the pod, unless you got anything else, brother.
I think that's the pod, man. This was a great topic. Appreciate you bringing this one to the table. And for those listening, like, subscribe, follow. We'll be back at you next week.
Thanks for being on this hero's journey with us.
Yep.